I'm the Baron of Caring, and this is another New Vegas video. In this video is not a weapon analysis, but an explosive analysis. Now, I have never played a fully explosive build in New Vegas, but over the course of all of these weapon analysis videos, I have noticed inconsistencies between the game and what is stated. So I decided to do a deep dive to investigate the reason why. And first, we'll start off with vanilla rules for grenades and mines. Grenades can be used in vats, but mines cannot. Mines cannot due to owing them being on a form list that disallows them from being used in vats. Grenades, the gas bomb, and the microfusion cluster bounce unpredictably after being thrown due to their increased throwing velocity. And in order to achieve the maximum throwing velocity for grenades, it requires approximately 1 second of charge up in order to achieve that velocity. However, any time spent holding does not lower the fuse time of the grenade. The Dead Money Gas Bomb and Gunrunner's Arsenal MFC Cluster, despite being thrown with more velocity, are mines, not grenades. Only dynamite, when dropped, and mines, once placed, can be shot and triggered. Any other object or explosive that is dropped in the world space cannot explode, and mines have to be deployed first. Explosives can be reverse pickpocketed into an NPC's inventory and will kill them regardless of the explosive, but it does still produce the appropriate explosion at their location, making pulse mines perfect for this use. Now, impact damage is not an explosive damage type, but it is physics-based. Mines can be shot once they are placed, as we said before, but they have an HP of 5. This can be tested by using a BB gun since it does 4 damage per shot. It takes a minimum of 2 shots to make mines explode. Mine fuses are listed for hostile mines the player encounters if they have 100 explosives. Mine fuses for player-deployed mines are about 1 second after the mine is deployed and triggered regardless of actual explosive skills, and only 1 point of explosives is needed to disarm mines. Grenade range is not affected by strength or explosive skill, but is actually determined by the projectile type, which has a defined speed in the GECK. Damage, when thrown, is determined at the point of being thrown, so temporary skill boosts, like those from magazines, that wear off before a mine explodes still apply whenever the mine does explode if they were thrown beforehand. And max damage we are using in this video is based on constant damage increasing perks and mask explosive skill. The base damage is taken from the GECK explosion data, with the Pip-Boy determining damage without impact or DOT if applicable for mines and grenades. It doesn't include Black Widow, Eye for an Eye, or the species-specific challenge perks. Instead, Thought You Died, Lord of Death, and Bloody Mess will be used in addition to perks mentioned on the next screen. Now, to talk about explosives perk, we have to first talk about the ones that can affect the distance that you throw. And the first one is Loose Cannon, and is a trait that reduces throwing velocity by 25% for melee throwing weapons and grenades. The changes are best seen with throwing weapons like the Protonic Throwing Axe, as its explosion gives a noticeable hit impact. Heave-Ho increases throwing velocity by 50%, but also for firearms with arcing projectiles, like the Fat Man, Incinerator, and the Grenade Rifle, including all the DLC ones. This is due to the fact that it affects a global variable, while Loose Cannon affects a form list. Demolition Expert increases explosive damage by 20% per rank, with a maximum of 3 ranks for 60%. Mad Bomber is needed for GRA crafting and requires 45 explosives and repair. Now, the Grunt grants plus 25% damage with frag grenades, the Grenade Rifle, Thump Thump, and the Grenade Launcher, but not the DLC grenade rifles. Cowboy grants a plus 25% damage with dynamites, time bombs, and the firebomb. And Pyromaniac grants plus 50% damage to the explosions of fire and gas bombs and incendiary grenades, with a niche benefit. Hit the Deck grants plus 25 DT against all explosives, and can be useful to push damage down, but damage in New Vegas will deal at minimum 20% of its incoming damage, which is variable inside the radius of an explosion, meaning that the only way to be sure to avoid damage is to keep your distance. And finally, splash damage increases the AoE of explosives by 25%. For future slides, a skill number in parentheses indicates the skill level to craft, the AoE number in parentheses is the splash damage perk applied, and the weight in parentheses is with Pack Rat, Heavyweight, or mods applied. Now, the first weapon we are talking about is Dynamite. It is obviously the first grenade, which requires 0 skill to use, strength of 1, The AoE is 750 or 938 units if you have the splash damage perk. Damage is 1 plus 75 base explosion damage. The max damage is 1 impact damage with 176 explosive damage. The AP cost, which is common for mini grenades, is 24 AP. The speed of the projectile is 1,200 units per second, which is also common among mini grenades. The fuse is 2.5 seconds. The weight is 0.3. With pack rat it goes to 0.15, and the value is 25 caps. An oddity of this grenade is that holding down the attack button for dynamite will have the courier hold it close to its lighter, and despite the strange look of it, it will be thrown further after being charged up for a second. Then we have the long fuse variant of the dynamite, which is the same as the normal dynamite in every single way, except for the fuse of 5 seconds. It should also be noted that, like the normal dynamite, its charge-up animation includes the courier holding it over a lighter. This does still increase the amount of distance it's thrown and needs to be held for 1 second. The next weapon we cover is the Firebomb from Honest Hearts with the same dynamic charge up as the dynamite. And despite being in a glass bottle, it does have to run its fuse down to explode. It is a thrown type weapon, with a skill of 50 and a strength of 2 required to use it effectively and accurately. Its AoE is very small, at 212 or 265 with splash damage. The damage is 1 impact, 20 explosion damage, and 4 damage per second for 8 seconds. The max damage therefore is 73 impact damage and 32 DOT. AP cost is the same, the speed is the same, its fuse is 1.5 seconds, its weight is half a pound, with pack rat taking it to 1/4 of a pound, and its value is an expensive 200 caps. The next grenade is the successor to the Firebomb and significantly more advanced. It is the Incendiary Grenade. Again, it is a grenade, requires the same skill and strength, with a much larger AoE of 450 units up to 563. It does 50 explosion damage and then 6 damage per second for 15 seconds. Max damage is 141 damage with 90 damage over time. Same AP cost and speed, fuse of 2.5 seconds, same weight as before, and a value of 200 caps. And despite what some may report, the Pyromaniac perk does work on the Incendiary Grenade and the Firebomb. But the high price of both grenades is hardly justified with the damage they do, even if you include the Pyromaniac perk. Now, the frag grenade does make the incendiary grenade all but useless. It is a grenade that only requires half the amount of skill, the same amount of strength, but has twice the AoE at 900 units, which splash damage takes to 1125. Its damage is also significant, at the base being 125 explosion damage, and max damage being 291. Same AP cost and speed as before, and a fuse of 2.5 seconds. The weight is the same, and the value is cheaper at 150 caps. Like Fallout 3, the frag grenade is the most common grenade in New Vegas, and is honestly the best overall grenade for that reason. The unusually high blast radius will cause some friendly fire if used carelessly, but it is still an indispensable part of an explosive armory. The next grenade is the Pulse Grenade. It is a similar grenade with skill of 50, strength of 2, AoE 750, which is not bad, and it up to 938 with splash damage. It does have an interesting damage profile of 10 explosive damage, with 200 damage being done to robots, 80 damage being done to people in power armor, and 100 damage done to big mountain robots. This damage is done, as far as I know, directly to the health pool and does not go through DR or DT. Max damage is 200 for the robots and 20 damage for the explosion. The explosion damage is affected by DT and DR as normal. Has the same AP cost, speed, fuse, and weight as usual, and the value is 40 caps, making it one of the cheapest grenades. And the fact that they can stun robots makes them great tools to have, and their low weight means that you won't ever be sad that you had a few of them. And it should be noticed that all pulse effects only deal 100 base damage to big mountain robots, except for those from the Zap Glove and its unique counterpart, as that base effect of EMP for those weapons wasn't updated by Old World Blues. The next is the Plasma Grenade. It is a very advanced grenade at 75 skill required, the same strength. It has a much smaller AoE than the frag grenade at 450, so that goes up to 536 units with splash damage. It does 225 damage in that radius, with a max damage of 418. Same AP cost, speed, and fuse, and weight, with a value of 300 caps. They are very rare to come by, but with high damage, the smaller blast radius means that it should be used in VATS or against slower, more predictable foes. High-speed foes like Deathclaws are probably not the best enemy to use plasma grenades on. Now next we get into the Gunrunner's arsenal, with the Microfusion Cell Grenade, the easiest and most abundant grenade to be made by the player. It is a thrown weapon with a skill requirement of 25 but 50 to craft, is an AoE of 600 which is very respectable, and splash damage brings it up to 750. It does 75 damage, with a max damage of 140, AP cost slightly higher at 35, same speed and fuse as before, and weight, weirdly. It's valued at 15 caps, making it the cheapest grenade in all of the DLCs, but it does require the Mad Bomber perk to make, and if you're doing an explosives or crafting playthrough, this is quite a familiar friend and vital to early level success. Speaking of crafting grenades, the next one is the tin grenade. There's not much to say about it, as it is an alternate to the MFC grenade, and it uses some of the more benign building materials in order to build, especially pistol powder. It is a grenade that requires 0 skill, but a 25 skill to make, which is actually a 45 skill because that is required for Mad Bomber. The AoE is a very strange 768, but if you have the splash damage perk, it goes to a nice even 960, which is the case with a lot of the Mad Bomber weapons. The damage is 100, with a max damage of 187, so the MFC grenade is not far behind. It has the same AP cost as the MFC grenade at 35, same speed, fuse, and weight, and a value of 25 caps. Not bad for a tin can packed with pistol powder. Now the next one, which is familiar to anyone that has played Fallout 3, is the Nuka Grenade. It has a skill requirement of 100 to use accurately, with 60 required to make it. Requires a strength of 2, an AoE that's very tight of 450, going up to 563. The damage is an exceptional 350 explosive, with 2 damage per second for 5 seconds. The max damage is an interesting 973 plus 10, and I have seen it to be true. AP cost is lower at 24, normal speed, fuse, and weight, with a value of only 50 caps, despite the expensive soda that goes into them. Now, the penultimate grenade in this series is the Holy Frag Grenade. It is a 0 skill requirement grenade, so it means anybody can use it, and that's good because all that required to get it is the Wild Wasteland perk to get 3 of these in the basement of one of the Camp Searchlight churches. It has a large AoE of 1500 with a splash damage AoE of 1875. It does an impressive 800 damage normally, with a max damage of 1850, enough to kill anything in the game and then some, a normal AP cost, an increased speed of 1500 units per second, a fuse of 3 seconds, so you can use that extra half second, same amount of weight as almost everything else, and a value of 500 caps. And the final grenade is, of course, the Flashbang. When you pick it up, it tells you it does several things. It deals fatigue damage, it drains skills, and frenzies tunnelers. It accomplishes this through a script which generates 25 to 100 points of fatigue damage, then uses the random percent to see if a tunneler that was hit is frenzied. It does this by turning them aggressive and remove them permanently from the tunneler faction. When the script is done, it does restore 100 fatigue. The skill drain is caused by the enchantment applied to the explosion properties, which drains guns, energy weapons, explosives, melee weapons, and unarmed weapons by 50 points for 10 seconds. Then, for good measure, it makes your screen fuzzy for the same amount of time. It can cripple legs and does act strangely when you use a lot of close enemies with it. And I've seen this happen with the incendiary grenades as well, but I do not know why. If you use this against more than, say, 5 enemies at once, it can cause the game to pause with the amount of scripting that is done. Now, as for the grenade itself, it requires a skill of 50, a strength of 4, assuming it's very heavy. It has an AoE of 768, which splash damage takes to 960. It does 15 damage and all the things I just said. Does a max damage of 30, AP cost of 24, normal speed, normal fuse, normal weight, and a value of 50. Starting the mines, we'll be doing the improvised mines first, and that is the powder charge, which is available for pickup early in the game around the powder ganger camps. It has a skill requirement of 0 with a crafting requirement of 10 that requires 2 pieces of dynamite, making it far more expensive than the 10 grenade. Has a strength requirement of 1, an AoE of 192 or 240 units with splash damage, a damage of 75, max damage of 140, a standard speed of 400 for mines, a standard fuse of 3 seconds, a standard arming distance of 100, same weight as grenades, and a value of 25 caps. The next one is a lot more explosive, and that is the bottle cap mine for those returning from Fallout 3. Has a skill requirement to use of 0, and it can be picked up some places, but requires 75 explosive skill to craft. It does have a more efficient variant when you take the Mad Bomber perk, but that requires 85 to make. Requires 1 strength, a larger AoE of 256 or 320 units with splash damage. It does 200 damage, up to a maximum of 371. Standard speed, fuse, arming distance, and weight, and a value of 150 caps. Now, from the improvised and created mines, we have the most common mine and the one you might have on you at any given time. That is the frag mine. It is a simple mine requiring 25 skill, 1 strength, has 192 AoE with 240 units with splash damage, 100 damage, max damage 187, normal speed, normal fuse and distance, weight, and a value of 75 caps. And then we have the pulse mine, which is a lot like its grenade brethren, and since they're not used actively against the player, power armor wearing people never have to worry about them. Requires a skill of 50 like the grenade, but a strength of 2, highest so far. Its AoE is 450 or 563 splash damage. Does the same amount of damage as the grenade with the same amount of max damage. The speed, fuse, arming distance, weight are all standard with a value of 40 caps just like the grenade. This, for those not wearing power armor and using them against robots, is the safest grenade to toss in their face. Now, following the same trend, we have the plasma mine. Very rare, but is used against the player from time to time. It requires 75 skill to use, strength of 2, an AoE is pretty standard, 192 and 240. does 150 damage, so much less than the grenade, the max damage of 279, speed of 40 thrown, standard fuse, arming distance, and weight, and a value of 300 caps. Very rare and expensive, so it's only for special occasions. And next we get to a weird one, the detonator. It is used in a couple of quests. It's technically a gun, but technically an explosive weapon. It requires 0 skill, 0 strength to use, and it runs a game-specific command and quest-specific script that makes all armed C4 in the current cell explode, even through walls. If you do fast travel out, it will not detonate those cells. Now, its weight is fairly standard again at half a pound, quarter with pack rat, and its value of 25 caps. There's a unique variant of this that is specifically used for the quest Volaire, which runs a specific quest script. The next mine is the C4. A set explosive, requires a skill of 75 to accurately place them for whatever good that is, requires a strength of 2, an AoE of 512 with splash damage radius of 640, a damage of 250, and a max damage of 464. Speed of being tossed is the same. It can only be detonated with the detonator or if it's being shot. It has no max arming distance or minimum arming distance since it's manually set off by the player. Has a very low weight even though each of those bricks of C4 weighs about 3 pounds. And it has a value of 1,000 caps. Very expensive, but it can be found throughout places in the game. Now the next mine is from Dead Money, and it is the Demolition Charge. It's a frag mine in all the exact same way, except for it is 1.5 pounds, which goes down to 3/4 of a pound instead. And it can only be made from casino chips, which, if you're in the post game, you need 75 caps in order to make them, which means using the voucher coupon in the every 3 days means you can get quite a few demolition charges, even if they weigh quite a bit. Now, another Dead Money throwable and slash placeable mine, it is the gas bomb, used by the ghost people, requires a skill of 40 to make and use, and you do not need to have been in the Sierra Madre to make it. Requires a strength of 1, a blast radius of 600, or 750 units of splash damage. It does 1 impact, 80 explosion damage, and 2 damage per second for 5 seconds of incendiary damage, and has a max damage of 225 explosion, and it is affected by the Pyromaniac perk despite what some people might say. It is thrown with the speed of 1,000 units per second, has a fuse of 3 seconds, same arming distance, a weight of 5, which cannot be reduced, and a value of 75 caps. Now when you build it, you do not need a gas cylinder on you, as that is not an item in the game, but you conjure it out of things unknown. Now another DLC weapon, and that is the Satchel Charge. It is a crafted weapon that only requires 25 explosive skill to make, but 50 to use effectively. Requires a strength of 4 to toss it. Has an AoE of 384, which goes up to 480. It does 250 damage, with a max damage of 464, a throw speed of 400, and it has a hostile fuse of 0.8 seconds. When it is being used by the player against enemies, it has a functionally instant or 0.2 second fuse. Arming distance is slightly bigger at 150. Its weight is 3/4 of a pound, which goes down to 0.37, and has a value of 125 caps. The next crafted mine is the MFC cluster, which is thrown like a grenade and is in that placed thrown category. Requires 70 explosive skills to make, with 50 to use accurately, which you will want, a strength of 1, and a AoE of 600 per grenade that goes up to 750. Its damage is 75 times 6 for the projectiles, so it has a max damage of 6 impact if you toss it at somebody's face. However, you will then take 840 damage that is instanced into 6 sets of 140. The door and damage threshold is applied separately for each explosion. It is thrown with a standard grenade speed of 1200 units, a fuse of 3 seconds, arming distance of 100, same weight despite being 6 grenades, and a value of 110 caps. What some might consider the ultimate mine, the Fat Mine is a mini nuke with a sensor module on it. Requires 80 skill to put that thing on it, but 50 to use effectively. With a strength requirement of 3, it does an AoE of 1400 or 1750 with splash damage, and does 5 impact damage to anyone that you toss it on, but it also does 450 explosion damage, and the max damage is 6 impact with 841 explosive damage. It's thrown at a faster speed of 800 units, fuse of 3 seconds, arming distance of 100, it weighs 3¼ pound, and has a value of 275 caps, which is certainly less than the components that go into it. The Time Bomb. It is a placed mine that can be moved with Z, has a skill requirement to use and to create of 50, requiring a strength of 1. It has a ludicrous AoE of 1024, which goes up to 1280. The damage is fairly low at 150, but its max damage goes up to 695. I can't explain why it goes up this high, but it certainly does whenever I have used it. The speed of throw is 400, its fuse is a monstrous 15 seconds, does not have an arming distance since it always goes off after you toss it and 15 seconds have elapsed. It weighs ½ pound despite 5 sticks of dynamite going into it, and that can be even less to ¼ pound, and its value is 750 caps. The real ultimate mine is the high-yield time bomb introduced in the Gunrunner's arsenal. Requiring 70 explosives to make, and 1 additional stick of dynamite, a lot of things are the same, except for the AoE at 1536, which goes up to 1920, and the damage, which goes from 400 to 926. I can't rightly explain why this is the case, but it is. The fuse time is 15 seconds, with no arming distance, with the same weight and value as a normal time bomb. Then we start with projectile weapons, starting with the Humble Grenade Rifle. It has a skill requirement of 25, a strength of 3, an AoE of 750, and that goes to 938, which will be standard across all 40mm launchers. The same with the damage, 2 with 100 explosive damage. So the maximum is 202, with a speed of 1,750 that, due to a mod, goes up to 3,500. Durability is 495 shots, The ammo type is 40mm grenades, a weight of 6, and a value of 300 caps that goes up to 1,000 if you include the mod. Now on to the second of mini grenade rifles, we have the unique Thump Thump, which is similar to the grenade rifle in many ways, including the fact that it has a long barrel modification already in the gun. Now it shares the same strength and skill requirement, has the same AoE stats and base damage, but the max damage is 2 impact and 234 explosion damage. Its speed is 3,500 on account of the long barrel modification, its durability is 620 shots, ammo type of 40mm grenades, weight of 5.5 units, and a value of 800 caps. I'm hit! The third grenade rifle is the Mercenary Grenade Rifle from the Courier Stash, which is once again similar to the other grenade rifles, although it has a skill requirement of 0, same strength, AoE, normal damage, but because it does not benefit from the Grunt perk, its max damage is 2 impact and 186 explosions. Its speed is 1,750, and unlike most unique weapons, it can be upgraded with the long barrel modification, turning it into a carbon copy of the grenade rifle at 3,500 units in terms of speed, but maintaining that same 0 skill requirement. The durability is 495 shots, fires the same ammo type, weighs the same as the Thump Thump, and its value is 300 or 1,000 caps with the mod. Hey. I'm out of here. Damn. Now on to the ones added by Lonesome Road. We get the Red Victory Grenade Rifle from Lonesome Road, as a skill requirement of 25, strength of 3, same AoE, same damage. Weirdly, it does interact with the Grunt perk, at least according to the Pip-Boy, as it has a max damage of 2 plus 234 explosion damage. Has a speed of 1,750, which cannot be increased by the long barrel modification. The durability is 620 shots. Ammo type is 40mm grenades, it only weighs 4 units, and has a value of 950 caps. Hey. I'm out of here. Damn. Now to balance out that lightweight grenade launcher, we have the Great Bear Grenade Rifle, again from Lonesome Road. Everything is mostly the same except for it does more impact damage. At 15 impact damage, same explosion damage, and weirdly it says it's supposed to do 18 impact damage and 248 explosion damage. The speed is 1,750 and cannot be modified, and the durability is an astounding 1,245 shots, while its weight is 5, still lighter than a standard grenade rifle, and that is a value of 950 caps. Hey. I'm hit. Damn. And now that we're done with all those grenade rifles, we can go to a different weapon, the Grenade Launcher, based off the China Lake prototype. It requires 75 explosive skill to use and 8 strength, which kind of explains the fact that it has a very heavy slide and takes a long time for the courier to load in another round. It has an AoE of 750 or 938 as it uses 40mm grenades, but it does 30 impact damage with 100 explosive damage. And it says it's 36 impact damage maximum with 264 damage explosive, but in testing it does about 230 damage, so there's something going on at work. It has the same speed of 1750, durability of 495, and a weight of 12, with heavyweight bringing it down to 6. It does have a value of 4,200 caps. It is very expensive and cannot be found on the ground anywhere.
I'm hit! I'm out of here!
And then we go into the modded 25mm grenade APW from GRA. It fires 25mm grenades, one of only 2 weapons to do so, the skill of 75 just like the grenade launcher, and a strength of 5 to use. Has an AoE that's slightly smaller at 550, goes up to 688 due to the smaller grenade, and it does 2 impact damage with 50 explosion damage. Max damage then is 118 from the grenade. Has a speed of 2,000 units per second and a durability of 745. The ammo type is, as stated before, 25mm grenades, and it weighs 8 pounds. It has a value of 4,200 and it can go up to 8,600 with all the weapon mods.
Hey, watch out! Down! I'm out of here!
And then we get to the weapon that actually uses 25mm grenades and is the only weapon in the base game to do so, the grenade machine gun. It requires a skill of 100 and a strength of 8. Due to the rapid firing of grenades, it is highly recommended you have heave-ho, lest the screen shake cause you to accidentally harm yourself, even though the AoE is still only 550 up to 688. The damage includes no impact damage, but it goes up to 90 explosion damage, with a speed still the same of 2,000 units per second. Has a durability of 995 shots. It weighs 15 pounds, which goes down to 7.5, and it costs 5,200 caps, with 8,700 caps being with the high-speed computer.
Damn! Watch out! This is hopeless! Damn!
And this is the only weapon from the base game that includes rechambering, Mercy. However, the Survivalist Rifle and Fido from Honest Hearts and Old World Blues respectively are rechambers as well. As expected, Mercy uses 40mm grenades, has the same stats as the grenade machine gun, but has higher AoE due to the changed grenades, and explosive damage. The AoE is 750, goes up to 935, with impact damage being 5 and 100 explosive damage, which goes up to 6 and 188. Has the speed of 1750 like all 40mm grenades, but a durability of 2,495. It weighs 15 pounds down to 7.5 and costs 5,200 caps if you want to sell it.
Hey! This is hopeless!
And now we go on to a weapon that doesn't fire arcing projectiles, and one of only 3 in the game, the missile launcher. It requires a skill of 75 to use and a strength of 6 to handle accurately, has an AoE of 1000 with a splash damage of 1250, impact damage of 125, and explosive damage of 200. Max damage of 149, plus 452 explosive damage. At least on paper. The Pip-Boy does say 601 max damage for a direct impact, and theoretical with all of the perks says 507. But in testing, max damage was only around 360 damage with a direct hit, which is only slightly above normal damage. This will require further testing, but the Hive missile similarly underperformed, dealing 600 damage out of a stated 810. The weirdest thing was once I fired them in VATS, a standard missile did around 500 damage with the max damage setup, while the Hive missile dealt about 700. Very strange behavior. The same extends to the unique missile launcher Annabelle. Now, it does fire a missile at speed of 1550 units per second, even though it seems quite slow when you fire it in person. Has a durability of only 245 shots, fires a missile, obviously, a weight of 20, which heavyweight brings down to 10, and a base value of 3,900 that goes up to 5,400 whenever you include the guidance system.
Hit! This is hopeless. I'm hit.
Now, Annabelle is the sniper rifle of missiles, being more accurate than a modded missile launcher. There are many things that are different, most of which is the spread, weight, and impact damage. The strength requirement is 5 as it weighs less. It does 25 more impact damage, but suffers from the strange inconsistency and vast strange inconsistency in damage. Cannot explain why. It is also more durable at 495 shots. It weighs 15 pounds, which heavyweight brings down to 7.5, but the same value of 5,200.
Hey! I'm hit.
Now, Rocket's Red Glare is the unique Lonesome Road weapon that can be got twice, and is the signature weapon of the Divide. It is a projectile-based weapon firing rockets. Its skill requirement is 100, the strength is 6. The AoE is much smaller than the missile at 500 or 625 with splash damage. It does 20 impact damage and 40 explosive damage, which is a maximum of 22 damage on impact and 89 explosive damage. However, it fires fully automatically. The speed of each missile is 5,550 or 11,100 for each of the rockets. Durability is 2,245 shots, and it weighs 20, which heavyweight takes down to 10. It is also the most expensive weapon at 15,000, and with mods it goes to 46,500.
Hey, will ya? I'm out of here. This is
The Fat Man. It requires 100 skill and 8 strength, just like the grenade machine gun. It has an AoE of 1,700, which goes up to 2125 units. Damage is 400 impact and 600 explosive, which makes it weaker in terms of explosion damage compared to the Fallout 3 iteration. The max damage is 476, with max explosion damage is 1,372, enough to kill anything in the base game. The speed of the projectile is 2,500, although most mini-nukes are affected by gravity, more than most projectiles. The durability is 495 shots, and there are not 495 mini-nukes in the game, although Lonesome Road and Gunrunner's Arsenal add mini-nukes to buy. Ammo type is a mini-nuke. It can be affected by both its weapon mod, which is a little boy, and heavyweight at the same time, and both of those drop the weight by 50%, taking 30 down to 7.5. It does cost 6,000 caps or 8,000 caps for the GRA version, and the mod is an additional 2,500 caps on top. Now, there is a unique version of the Fat Man called the Esther, which is very nice looking. It has a blast shield on the front, giving you some defense against the mini nuke you just launched, but not much. It requires a strength of 8 and a skill of 100. It has the same AoE. It does 75 more impact damage, which means that impact damage is 565. Speed of the projectile is the same. Durability is 620 shots. Using a mini nuke, it weighs 40 but has no mod, so its minimum weight is 20, but it does cost 18,000 caps. Quite expensive. And as we finish up, we have to talk about heave-ho and loose cannon interactions. Heave-ho, as said before, increases projectile velocity by 50%, including arcing firearms. However, loose cannon raises fire rate for throwing weapons by 30%, but lowers projectile velocity by 25%. And it also lowers AP cost of affected weapons by 30%. The combined effects for both heave-ho and loose cannon is 1.5 times 0.75, or a 12.5% increase. Now granted, loose cannon does not affect projectile weapons that are firearms, whereas it does have a specific form list that it pulls from. The base game grenades, if we use the benefit of loose cannon, they cost 25 AP to use, so they're reduced to 17 AP, giving you one more throw on average for any given agility value. All other throwing weapons get the 15% increase from heave-ho with no effects of loose cannon applying. Now, Dead Money's throwing knife spear is uniquely not affected by loose cannon because the MQ00S script for Dead Money does not add items to the loose cannon perk form list. Dead Money is the only DLC that overwrote New Vegas form lists with new files, but after Dead Money, they did form list manipulation with scripts since it's easier to see all the changes in one place. Loose cannon only affects specific weapons because it uses a form list to select which weapons it affects, while heave-ho affects a global variable. The range of projectile speeds are listed below. Now we can talk about ammo types. So the 25mm grenade variant has different explosive behaviors. They all share these traits. They have a speed of 2,000, and gravity affects them at 1.5 times. The high explosive increases the radius from 550 to 750. The plasma decreases radius from 550 to 475, but increases the damage from 50 to 65. Pulse decreases the radius and damage, but adds an EMP effect, goes from 50 damage to 4, 550 radius to 220, and does 75 damage to robots and 30 to power armor, which completely ignores DR and DT. Timed adds a fuse, but is otherwise exactly the same as standard ammo. Goes from impact to 1.5 second timer.
This is all blessed.
Now we'll talk about 40mm grenade launchers and their variants. They all share the same speed of 1750 and the gravity affects them 1.5 times. Incendiary 40mm grenades decrease radius and explosion damage but add fire damage. The AoE goes from 750 to 450, damage from 100 to 75, damage over time, 6 damage per second for 15 seconds. Plasma increases radius and increases damage just like before, 750 to 650, and 100 to 130 damage. Pulse does the same as 25mm grenades. AoE goes from 750 to 375. The damage goes from 100 to 8. The EMP is 150 to robots and 60 to power armor that ignores DR and DT.
This is all blessed. This is all blessed. This is all blessed.
Now there are some oddities about 40mm grenades. The Thump Thump, for example, uses a unique projectile to achieve its doubled velocity, like the modded grenade rifle, since it cannot be modded itself. At some point during development for Lonesome Road, one of the grenade rifles was supposed to fire another custom 40mm projectile that did 125 explosion damage, while everything else remained the same. Likely that it would have been the Great Bear rifle to go with its increased impact damage. It is fully implemented in the game and only needs to be referenced by a weapon to be used. Now, missile variants and explosive behavior. All missiles are unaffected by gravity and can move 10,000 units. High explosive missiles increase radius and impact damage of all things, so the AoE goes from 1,000 to 1,500. The damage goes from 125 to 169. And the Annabelle goes from 150 to 203. High velocity missiles just increase velocity from 1,550 to 5,000. And Hive missiles decrease radius and both types of damage, but fire 9 missiles and increase velocity and spread. The AoE is cut in half from 1,000 to 500. The damage goes from 200 to 35. The impact damage for a standard missile launcher becomes 125 to 14. The spread of a standard missile launcher goes from 0.3 to 6. The modded spread goes to 0.05 to 1. The velocity goes up from 1,550 to 1,800. And the Annabelle impact damage goes from 150 to 17, and the spread goes from 0.02 to 0.4. Now the rocket variants all have the velocity 5550 to 11,110. All rockets can be crafted, and the standard rocket can be disassembled for the exact amounts of components as it takes to make. The high explosive rocket increases radius and impact damage again from 500 AoE to 700, and impact damage from 20 to 27. The incendiary rockets decrease explosion damage but add fire damage. Damage goes from 20 to 30, and DOT is 2 per second for 8 seconds. And then, everyone's favorite, mini nuke variants from the GRA. The time mini nuke adds a fuse, making it safer to utilize the impact damage, becomes a 5-second timer. The big kid mini nuke increases radius, gravity, damage, but moves slower. The AoE goes from 1700 to 2200, damage goes from 600 to 800, and the gravity goes from 1 to 1.25, and the velocity slows from 2500 to 1800. The low yield mini nukes decrease explosion damage and radius, but it is cheaper. The AoE goes from 1700 to 1500, and the damage goes from 600 to 400 in the blast radius. Some people say it is less affected by gravity, but that's just not true. Now, tiny tots decrease radius, both types of damage, gravity, and velocity, but fire 9 tiny tots and at an increased spread. The AoE is 1700 to 500. The damage explosive goes from 600 to 125. The impact damage goes from 400 to 44. And the spread goes from 0.5 to 10, while gravity goes from 1 to half. The impact damage of Esther goes from 475 to 53. It is still way more potent than you give it credit for and will easily kill a player. Now, the radiation behavior is slightly different. Standard and time mini nukes share the same radiation field of 10 rads per second that takes 12 seconds to dissipate in a radius of 616. The big kid mini nukes generate a larger and stronger field at 30 rads per second for 20 seconds and an AoE of 2500. The low yield mini nuke generates the weakest field at 6 rads per second that dissipates over 12 seconds with a radius of 616. Well, the tiny tots generate a larger field than the standard mini nuke with more radiation somehow, although smaller devices tend to spread more fallout. The rads are 25 rads per second over 12 seconds, dissipates, and an AoE of 1000. And finally, some final notes from part 1 from the GRA. The 50 BMG explosive ammo is not affected by any explosive perk, but does similarly to a MFC grenade. As a hit scan, it has no delay to delivery, dealing 80 damage and an AoE of 550. The two-step goodbye implants a grenade on a foe on a critical hit. This explosion is also unaffected by explosive perks. In between a plasma grenade and a frag grenade, 175 damage with a 500 AoE. DT and DR reduce impact damage and explosive damage separately, making hive ammo best for unarmored targets, and most direct hits will result in a shield icon on any other target. The GRA Fatman, as said before, costs 2,000 caps more and has the animations to use GR mini nukes. Finally, we have the second and last of the final notes, which will mostly deal with the damage discrepancy when it comes to projectile weapons. The grenades all did 5 to 10 points less than the Pip-Boy said they would, with the exception of pulse explosives and flashbangs. Mine damage, on the other hand, was inconsistent, probably due to calculations for line of sight, even when throwing them and hitting someone with them. Time bombs and C4 provide the most controllable mine experience, at least within the 15 seconds of the time bomb fuse. And speaking of time bombs, they have a much higher damage than the perks would suggest, which seems to imply there is some explosion skill scaling that works to radically increase the damage beyond the predicted 291 or 676 from the base damage with perks, as even the base game time bomb exceeds that 676 number. The missile launcher and red glare have a consistent discrepancy between their Pip-Boy stated damage and real-time damage. When they're using VATS, there's another damage value that falls in between the other two, which seems that VATS gives a damage boost to projectile-based weapons. Due to the high damage of the missile launcher, it is most obvious, but it exists to a lesser extent with all the grenade rifles and launcher. Additionally, the predicted damage of the grenade rifles is all over the place, but they seem to all perform about the same. It is possible that the Esther and Fat Man experience this problem too, but they already have enough damage to kill anything in the game several times over. The biggest thing they have to worry about is line of sight oddities, which appears to be done by comparing the point of the explosion to the center of the entity. So sandbags and concrete barriers can protect people from any explosion, and it is possible that through rounding, the Fat Mine actually generates the explosion in the ground, resulting in no damage seen in this video. It is possible that this could exist with all other explosives as well.